Welcome to another Sunday live show with your host, Mr. BetonYou. Tonight will be a debate style live topic show, open panel at some point for others that want to come in and talk about what the topics are tonight or want to talk about the debate that we will have. But before I get into that and before I get into why this is happening tonight, the guests that's going to be coming on the show, because that's what they are a guest on this show. I want to remind us of a few things, but I guess before we even get into that, hit the thumbs up that you guys could hear and see me okay, so that I could visually see that you guys are seeing me and hearing me. I get some clarification on that. So, and I'll say what's up to everybody in the chat. But if I can get a thumbs up in the chat from somebody, that would be fantastic. Welcome. I hope you guys had a great Sunday. Mindset Manny, what's up? Drain the Swamp, Blue Wolf. Let's see, Pedro. Hustle Mine, evening y'all, Toya, what up, what up? Thumbs up, hustle, I appreciate that. All right, so hope you guys had a great week. I had a fantastic week, feeling great, grateful just to be here doing what we're doing and doing the Sunday live show. Hope you guys had a great weekend. If you're out there working, I hope you're making good decisions. Hope you're getting close to your goals, all that good stuff. Now, I've had many people on this show. I've always have an open panel. Anybody that wants to come up, and a lot of times you get the same people to come up because they look forward to the show and they have something they want to give to the community, some insight or share a story or whatever. But I've had a lot of varying opinions from all sides of the country and all political spectrums and what they feel about this. And I hate gig work. I love gig work. I've had a few debates on this channel. I've had to clear my name about some things because people lie. They like to lie. They like to assume. Let me use that word. I don't want to say lie. People like to assume that they know something based on what they see on a screen or on a tablet or on a phone. So tonight, somebody reached out to me and wanted to come on the show because they have some opinions about the gig economy, rideshare specifically, and I've done rideshare before. Most of this channel is mostly food delivery, but I've done some rideshare videos. I share opinions on rideshare. When I started my gig life, as we call it, I started doing rideshare. I love rideshare. I don't love everything about it, but I loved picking people up, meeting new people. I like that. I was in the service industry for 18 years at restaurants. I like people mostly. So this particular gentleman that we'll have, his name is Tim. He had a channel still up. Doesn't look like he makes any videos. He's been on Reddit. I've done a little research. He's on Twitter, X, whatever we call it. He's been on some of your favorite shows. He's been on some podcasts that are on YouTube and other podcast catchers or whatever they're calling it. So this person talks about their experience being a rideshare driver and how bad it was, and really wants to stick it to the companies. And I can respect that on many levels. I've talked a lot about these companies, the good they do, the bad they do, and I've just kept my perspective real and honest out of St. Louis, and that's what we do here on this channel. But the one thing I will not allow, and I'll never allow, and anybody that's a content creator, you can handle it how you want to handle it. I'll say hi to everybody, hit the thumbs up and away, and the show will start soon. I'm just getting this little monologue out of the way, okay? The one thing I don't allow is if I have an open panel show and we have anybody can come on this channel and talk whatever they got to say, right? I won't stand for misinformation, especially when some are saying that I'm lying and misleading and talking to desperate, ignorant people. You being the desperate and ignorant people. Do I think some drivers are desperate and or ignorant? Yes, I do. I think we've all been desperate. I think when we come to the gig economy, we might have came out of it out of desperation. Do I think some people are ignorant? Absolutely. By definition, sure. But do I think as a gig tuber, because that's the word that people like to throw around and use, are we doing a disservice? And I've talked about this a few times on some lives, I made videos. Are we doing a disservice to the community by painting our reality? Meaning you're in a good market of St. Louis or California or New York or wherever you're making your content and you're talking about your experience, and maybe that's not somebody's in Kentucky or Louisiana or Chicago, so they feel slighted because they're not having the same results as you. Is that my fault? I think not. Personal responsibility sometimes tends to be lost, and I think there are some people that don't have a common experience in the gig economy and they want to dismiss anybody that does as somebody that is misleading. We're going to have a debate tonight. I'm ready. I hope this person's ready. I've done a little bit of research on this person myself. I think this person falls into a category of somebody that did not have a good experience on the app. So I will lend them the platform on this Sunday live show, lend them your ears so they can tell us why. What would they change? Do they think gig tubers, not just myself, I think this person has a problem with many, do they think we're doing something wrong? And I'll leave it up to the audience, and you can go into the live chat. Maybe you can come up on the live panel after we have a discussion. Where do you stand with these things? Who has the brunt of responsibility? Is it the companies? Is it the content creators? Or is it you as a person making the decisions that you can make for yourself to try to make the best out of what this gig economy is? Millions of people come to this work and they do it every single day. People are going to continue to come and do this work because the barrier entry is really easy, really low. And also, a lot of us just need to do it to get by because inflation and the cost of everything is rising. So your regular W-2 might not cut it anymore. So that's going to be the conversation we'll be having. That person has a link. When I see them pop in, I saw them 9:10, something like that. We'll go ahead and have them up. I'm going to see who's here. For those of you that are lost, just coming in, I open this channel to everybody. All opinions, all shapes, all sizes. Anybody that has an opinion, you can come on here and I'll listen to your side of any type of argument or debate or whatever. And that's what we're going to do tonight. So we'll see how effective that can be. Not trying to change anybody's mind here, but I think that as a community, everybody has a voice, whether they have a good experience or a bad experience. And that's what tonight is designed to do, I guess, right? Craig, what up, what up, what up? Listen at work, appreciate the 5. I'm going to go ahead and put up, let me go ahead and say hi to everybody first. Hold up. I don't want to skip anybody, but Craig, appreciate that. Listening at work. Hope you're getting ready to be busy at the Walmart, girl. Ooh, but you know that already. I said hi to Mindset Manny already. Hustle Mind Frame, Bleed, Toyo, James. What up, Dexter? Drain. I see Mark. Mike Don't Care. I see Jessica. What up, Ryan? Dashland 61. What's up? What's up? I see Roots Talk with Roy. I see Tara. Super random. Who else is here? Is that Cheyenne? I'm really hard to see all the names here. Hold on. Dashland, Cambo Dasher, T Money in the house. I see my man Thomas, Dexter, and then Craig with the $5. Biggie Smalls represent, baby. How you doing? Gig Adventures. You ain't insulted. You didn't get invited to DoorDash Roundtable. I definitely didn't get. I definitely didn't, but maybe we'll talk about that later. Definitely not worried about that though. Let's see who else. Blue, Rhonda, 7-Figure Dasher. What up? What up? Let's see, 1988. Appreciate that. Fat. What up? Gig Adventures. Why didn't you go to the meeting to see your boy Tony? They didn't invite me, but I don't do DoorDash anymore, so I don't think that's the main reason. I think the main reason is I'm been pretty anti DoorDash lately. I was involved in some way with a lawsuit with them. I shared a video talking about the lack of safety and onboarding and a lot of issues at the app. They don't want any part of Mr.BetonYou because I would not be a good spokesperson for DoorDash. So for me to go and be a part of any kind of roundtable wouldn't make sense for them. So, all right, we're still waiting on our guest, but he's got a few minutes, so we're good there. I'm excited for this debate. Let's go. Yeah, listen, nothing wrong with a debate. I think debates are healthy. And if I'm called out in a video, this was started from, he left a message. He'd like to come on. I said, you can email me. He emailed me. I'm a man of my word. You want to come on the show? I'll give you a platform. Tell me your struggles with the gig economy. Tell me why you think gig tubers are bad. You know, anything that you'd like to say to get off your chest with the community. I'm all ears. And so is the community. So we like to hear that, right? Everybody's welcome on this channel. All right, let's see. What up, Joyce? Here for learning. And you know what? That's an interesting point. I definitely think there's something to getting information online. Okay? Google owns YouTube, and it's the most powerful search engine, SEO, search engine optimization. When people are looking to do anything, Okay. I've done certain things around the house, or maybe it's a car repair. I'm trying to figure out how to put my own light bulb in my truck, right? I go to YouTube and there's a video for everything. When people sign up for DoorDash, Instacart, Spark, Uber, right? They go to YouTube, Google, same thing. How do I make money with DoorDash? What's this new metric system about? How much money can DoorDash's drivers make in 2025? Like, people search that. I had a family member that had a baby a little over a year ago and was wondering if you can do Instacart with the baby, like with a child. She Googled that and she said the first video popped up was mine. This was a video I made, I don't know, less than a year ago. When people want information, they want to learn, as this commenter says here. What's the name on that? Joyce, thank you. That's what people do. So I think the space for gig tubers giving information that is their reality that might help somebody else, I think that is needed. I think it's actually a positive thing. But I think our person tonight, Tim, I think he thinks differently. So I'd like to hear why he feels that way. Actually, Tim is going to join us in just a moment. I see him backstage. So I think the learning part is important. But to Tim's point, and maybe even yours and mine to a degree, there are people that put out wrong information, bad information, lie, mislead, right? I've seen some of that, at least from my perspective. What I've seen people say about things, or the flashy thumbnails, make $5,000 a week. Like, that's not reality. So is it leading people down a road that's dangerous, right? That's going to be some of the things that might come up in tonight's debate. We're going to bring them up right now because I'm not going to have you guys waiting. Appreciate all y'all for watching. Hit the thumbs up. Welcome our guest. His name is Tim. He had a channel. He could talk about that or not. That'll be up to him. But I'm going to bring him up right now.
How you doing, Pedro?
Good, Tim. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. How was your weekend?
My weekend was fine, man. I didn't do much work, so that was always a good thing.
Nice, cool. So would you mind if I just took a moment to kind of talk about how I structured my talking points?
Floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, so, and I just kind of did this for the benefit of your audience. So yeah, obviously I haven't been doing any gig content, and I really haven't been paying attention to the gig sphere in quite some time, about 2023, but every once in a while, some stuff will come across my feed because I did used to do the content. And I've just noticed, especially in the case of your channel, that there's been some inconsistencies in your messaging. And for the benefit of your audience, I went back and I found 4 examples. And I also have just a general question for you about the gig economy. All of the examples that I'm going to use tonight, and I'll name the videos, have come from the last 30 days. So the reason I'm mentioning that is that if anybody wants to go check my work, or if your audience wants to go and check out what it is exactly I'm saying, they don't have to catalog through your vast volume of videos. So I just wanted to say that. And then clearly this is your ship to steer. If you want, I can just start from 1 and go through 4 and then just let you respond to all of them, or however you'd like to do it.
Listen, man, why don't you go ahead and just share, first off, share the comment that you left, and or, we don't have to go into the emails, but why you have, first, let the audience know why you have a problem with gig tubers and or the overall space. Because I think there's that's kind of like an issue that you might have. And you don't have to talk about names or particulars because it's just you and I having this debate. So you don't have to bring in anybody. But why is it that the gig tube space, from what I understand from your perspective, why is it such a bad thing? Start with that.
Sure, because of the inconsistency of messaging that borders on propaganda at times. And I do think, clearly I can't say with any substantial evidence who I think is affiliated, but I do know that there are some working relationships that are involved in some of these gig tubers. And I think that they act as a propaganda wing. Another reason, something that I've noticed recently that's been coming up in my feed, is there seems to be this incoming wave of senior people like 60 and over doing retirement dashes. This just seems like eerily polished. Like I've got 60 and 70-year people in my family and they barely know how to use a smartphone. So it kind of seems as though there's a predatory nature to that. Is DoorDash or whoever reaching out to try to sway these retirees and these octogenarians to come and shill for their company. And some of these people, they will literally just tell you straight up that they'll take just a $2 or $3 order because, you know, who else is going to do it? And they're just doing it out of altruism and all this stuff. And I find all that to be really conveniently placed in the GigTube algorithm, if that makes any sense, without having to put on my full tinfoil hat.
So you're thinking, and I've heard this before, you're thinking that, and there has been many, well, not many, there's a few that I know of, content creators that have been either paid or paid partnership with DoorDash as an example, right? Or maybe even Uber or Lyft, or they've been interviews on certain podcasts and live shows. I've seen them. So there's definitely this, companies do reach out to content creators to have them talk about an upcoming program or talk about this or give their perspective because it helps the company, right? And a lot of that can be geared and they can only say certain things that are positive and maybe even scripted in some ways. But what I'm hearing you say is you think that, using your own tinfoil hat analogy, you think that there's maybe even more than the ones we know, and some of them are even senior citizens that are maybe preying on the economic times of senior citizens, and they're painting a picture that's not reality, and you have a problem with that.
A little bit. I don't think that the senior citizens themselves are getting up every morning with the agenda to go out and spread propaganda, but I think that the companies do benefit from it. And I think that the biggest contributor to why a lot of people get frustrated with the gig apps in general is because they don't know and they don't have a background in actual independent contractorship. So they don't know how terrible they're being screwed. I mean, just absolute all of their rights being taken away. And the reason that I look at the GigTube space as being culpable in all that is that if you don't know what's being taken away from you, then this new business model of the gig economy is going to be able to get away with everything. And as you've actually displayed on your channel, a lot of those same business models are starting to proliferate into traditional workspaces. You talked about FedEx the other day. So that really makes me nervous. So I just very briefly, I've been an independent contractor in the field of construction for, I want to say about 15, 16 years. That's what I do for my day job. And so in my state, the state of Oregon, you know, we're mandated to take ongoing education as to our rights and our abilities to defend ourselves as independent contractors, and also the rights and the laws that pertain to our customers and how they can react to us. So fast forward to 2019, I've gone through, you know, 8 or 10 years of ongoing education through the Construction Contractors Board. I download the Lyft app, and the very first thing that they want me to do is waive all of those rights, including my right to sue, and have to go forced into arbitration before I can even go and perform on the platform. So there's so much that people don't know, and they tune into these gig tubers and everything, and there's just inconsistency in messaging. And I think that if I can change one mind, or at least get one person to go into this with more open eyes, that's my mission.
Yeah, you know what, I'll say this before, I think there's some, you know, my goal isn't to find common ground necessarily between you and I, or any, you know, we can agree and disagree. I think that's healthy, but I do think that there's going to be some common ground with how we look at the apps. I think they can be very manipulative, and I think that's why some of the videos I make, and I'm going to let you get to the 4 that you're going to reference, right? I'm interested to see which 4 you pick, but I'm not pro DoorDash, pro Uber. You know, I think these apps, they can be very manipulative if you don't know information. You know, we do sign away our rights as, you know, I personally, we're not independent contractors. We are misclassified. I've said that many times. In the beginning, when I made my channel, I thought we were, because that's what I was told, but I didn't know what I didn't know. We are not independent contractors, not in the way of other not the way other fields are, because we can't control, we don't have a level of control when it comes with money and picking things, and they have these programs and they make you feel like you have to do this. That's not really true independent contractor work. So the apps do a really good job of like hiding that from 95% of people. So I get that point. I think if you could change one person's mind and make them look at it differently, that's great. But I think if you know something's bad and you have a channel and you try to help people not make bad decisions, do you not see some benefit to that?
Again, not if the messaging is inconsistent. And you'll see that kind of in my examples. I mean,
so give me your examples, and I would love, I'm going to give you the floor to hear out your examples you want to use.
Okay, I'll start with this one. You authored a video called DoorDash is Over, Stock Price Celebration, in which you say, we should not celebrate the failures of DoorDash. Instead, we need to take action and reshape the business models to make them more fair and equitable. Now, that's something that I would agree with. However, in another video, you say, back doing DoorDash, so many lies, bad legislation. That's the title. You contradict that by saying that you're patently against legislation, especially the ones being proposed in 4 states, Kentucky being one of them. I forget the other 3. And you call the legislation, quote, absurd, ridiculous, and silly. So
Yes.
you're telling two different stories there. Clear that up for me.
Yeah. How are they? First off, how are they 2 different stories?
Well, you're saying in one area that you want to reshape the business models, and that we as drivers need to reach out and reconstruct and perhaps author legislation, bug our city commissionerships and whatever. And then in the next line, you're saying that any legislation, especially the ones being authored in these 4 states, are absurd, ridiculous, and silly. So I'm not sure. If I was meeting you for the first time and I was trying to draft legislation, I don't know now if you're for it or against it. So clear that up if you could.
So I think certain legislation could be good. I think the legislation that I was talking about specifically that was trying to happen in Colorado, Kentucky, Louisiana, and Oklahoma, I believe, and I may be missing 1 or 2 other states. I think those are bad because what they do is they make everybody the same. And I am anti-legislation that's not going to give drivers competitive advantages. I think that there are, the legislation I pointed to in those videos talks about getting rid of all metrics and all rankings and ratings. I think we need some of those. I think even other independent contractor work, maybe even some of what you do, you might be measured and ranked based on your performance. I don't have any problem with DoorDash or Uber ranking me based on my customer service, my speed of on time. Like if I am taking care of my consumers and showing the app respect when it comes to what they feel is important, if that gives me a competitive advantage, I don't want legislation taking that away. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Where I would push back is in the penalty realm. So in the gig tube sphere, if I turn down a rider, if I cancel something, and if I drop below a threshold, I suffer a penalty, and then I could lose access to my earning stream. In real independent contracting, even if I upset one of my customers, if I install something wrong, if I drill a hole in the wall, if I do something like that, I get a chance to kind of restart the next day, still go out, still make my own bids, and that person doesn't get to, algorithmically eliminate me from the labor pool in my market. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
it's legislatively making everybody even, as you mentioned, I think would be good, because now it's on you to provide your own service, provide your own hype machine, get out there and be a true independent contractor. And again, I think that that's where you mentioned that I use the word ignorant for a lot of these people. And I feel that that's kind of where people are ignorant. They could have a tremendous advantage to be able to be their own propulsion machine in the gig economy if we didn't have to deal with the shadowy CEOs behind the curtain. So that's why I would push back.
How would you propose the 7 million gig workers do it on their own without the proponent of the CEOs?
Great question. I've thought a lot about that. I think my mind always goes towards decentralization, which there you kind of get into trouble because you have to find someone that's altruistic enough to build the network, right? But I feel like decentralization, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one, but I think that government stepping in perhaps and taking over some of these responsibilities. So think about this. What if instead of Uber, let's just take my city, for example. What if the city of Portland pushed back and said, you know what, we disagree with your business models. We're going to control a fleet of our own because we know that our constituency needs these rides. The society is ingratiated with this product. They now think they need it, and it provides a convenience. And why wouldn't it be nice to have a state regulated fleet of cars that you could go have a safe W-2 job with pension perhaps, and have everything taken care of? You still get your ride convenience, but now it's in a form that you can actually track, and it's taxpayer funded. instead of being at the whim of people that are only concerned about filtering dollars upward on behalf using the driver and the passenger. So those would be two examples that I would give.
That sounds like what the mayor of New York wants to do with grocery. Are you familiar with that?
I do, and it's weird that you say that, because in your video that you made about me last night, you said that I looked like people of a certain type that would probably watch Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I'm a punk rocker from Portland, Oregon.
No,
I think
you have. I get the vibes I get from you and listening to a podcast. I listened to a little bit of it that was from, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was with Steve. You know, I think you're probably pro. I'm gonna take a stab here. I think you're probably more pro union. I think, you probably would like some of that. I'm not necessarily anti-union, actually. I think, it would be to the benefit of the majority of gig workers if there was the proper regulation, legislation, or something that gave workers more rights. I'm not against that. I think most people in this community and most content creators want, like, no union, no this, no government. I'm not necessarily against that because I don't need the apps to pay all my bills. I think there are a lot of people struggling. They are taken advantage of, or maybe they're ignorant. Like, I'll use your word. That's a big reason why I have the channel. And because I want to try to help those people. I don't want you to make 15. I want you to make 20. I don't want you to make 20. I want you to make 25. I want you to get to $30 an hour. And I think actually in most markets that's actually reachable, achievable, and attainable if you're not only working Uber and Lyft. I think you predominantly, those were your two apps. I believe the experience you had and maybe the lack of money and respect was because that's all you did. I think a lot of people that cast a wider net and don't limit themselves in the gig economy, those are the ones actually having success. And I think it's really hard. If I was only doing DoorDash or only doing one app, I would probably be frustrated like you were getting frustrated with all these trips you were doing in Portland, Oregon, in the middle of the riots. Like, I think as gig workers, as independent contractors, as misclassified independent contractors, when you put yourself against the wall and you only give yourself like one way to get out or only one app to work, you have an experience like you have. Whereas me, I have multiple different ways to make money. If I get deactivated on this app, I'm not worried about it. I might be upset, but I'm not looking at the app to feed me. I'm going to feed myself through the app. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think that we agree. And just for the record, I also did Grubhub and Walmart Spark, and there's a series of, but I did Walmart Spark mostly out of vengeance that I won't go into because it gets into a political space. But you're absolutely right. But I also did do some food delivery. I did Walmart Spark, and then I also did some contract music stuff. So I totally believe in multiple streams of income. I think you're right there. I don't want to get too tangential, but I want to touch on something you said about unions. I think that one of, if not the biggest problems that we face in the gig economy, especially it being a new industry, is a part of the human condition. Whenever something new comes along, the first thing you want to do is politicize it. So when somebody uses a trigger word like union, now it becomes a political football. If I say
it's automatically, they're blue, they're a liberal. Yes, and I don't agree with that, but you're absolutely right.
And if I say, well, let me make my own decisions and I want to be an independent contractor, somehow I fall in the MAGA camp. And so it's just, I think that that's and I don't think that that's unique to the gig economy. I just think that because it's so new, it's what's hindering progress in terms of regulation.
I would agree with that. I'm really interested in hearing the 4 videos you picked. I mean, you picked the one, and I hope I answered. I don't know if I answered that about the legislation, the is there anything else I can be clear about that? If not, you can go to the other video. But that was my stance. I think appropriate legislation I'm not against. My stance is legislation that takes away what I feel can be competitive advantages for gig workers. I'm not for that necessarily.
Okay. You authored a video called Why DoorDash and Instacart Drivers Struggle, where you mentioned that the biggest reasons why drivers can't get ahead is the unwillingness to adapt. And then you bring up examples of, doing the same thing and expecting the same results is kind of crazy. You kind of use that adage. So first of all, before I get to where the contrast is, I want to just state for the record that my belief in this is patently false, because the algorithms are designed to read and react to patterns of our behavior. And this has been studied, and there's been studies done on Uber where, you can come up with a new strategy and come out, you'll go out and have a great couple of days, and then all of a sudden the algorithm sees your behavior and throttles you back. A great study was mentioned in the book Uberland by Alex Rosenblatt, which ironically I know now works for Uber. But anyway, if you look at, and just speaking to that, I'll close that thought out by saying that if you look at your wages over the course of if you cast out in a macro sense, even when you re-strategize and you do good over the course of the hours that you work, your median income never really raises. So that is to say that the money that you make is always commensurate to the hours that you work. So, and that also kind of speaks to us maybe not being independent contractors. But anyway, that where the contrast came in was on a video called "I'm Tired of This." And this is where you're literally experiencing the phenomenon that I just spoke to. And you're saying that the gig work is consistently low wage endeavors. But then you say, and I quote, "I wish these CEOs would pay fair and care more." So my question there is, what happened to the personal responsibility of the first video? And why all of a sudden are we kind of expecting these CEOs to change their stripes in a different video?
Yeah, great points. So I'll say this. I do believe you can adapt and make more. I think you're speaking of what some would call, and some even in the chat, that they're like kind of, there's a cap for drivers, especially if you work in one app over the period of a week, a month, where you extrapolate that out, you're going to make about the same. You can't really go higher than that because the algorithm is controlling you based on your decision making. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think there's, without having like facts and data and no research that I've done personally, based on what I've heard other people say, and based on my experiences with the apps that I work, when I only work predominantly one for an extended period of weeks, I think there's something to be said for that. But that's why I talk about adapting, because if I'm going to be okay with working Uber rideshare, and I did it when I first started doing this, that's what I did, and I did it for about a year, right? Part-time and then a little bit into full-time. I noticed, yeah, my about each week was about the same, unless there was a crazy event or something crazy happened, or a crazy big tip, or if I worked a little more, I did make more, but my average per hour was about the same, because that's my demographic, that's my marketplace, the time I chose to drive. So I had to adapt and say, I'm not going to only fish with this pole. I'm only going to catch that kind of fish with that kind of bait. I need to add in other apps that's going to allow me to have less downtime. So I think when, as gig workers, when we have one or two apps, that's all you have is that app. Downtime is a big factor in a lot in people's money making ability. You're sitting around, countless videos. I didn't see anything for 30 minutes, an hour. Oh my God, it was so slow, right? And time is money. So adapting to me is looking for other opportunities that lessen the time that you're in your car making nothing. Because as an independent contractor, we're not employees, we're not clocked in. So it's our job and my responsibility and yours and everybody's watching now to figure out, how do I have less downtime, give myself more opportunity. That's where the adapting comes in. And when you see trends on the Uber app and the algorithms not treating you right based on a tier program, based on whatever's going on, right? Something going on in your city that's like crazy, and I don't want to go to this zone. Now they're forcing me to do this. Then that's when you work a different application that maybe doesn't have that type of program, or doesn't have that type of feeling like, oh my God, it's going to be so slow, I'm not going to get anything today. Because they're all independent contractor work, but they all work for me on my device independently of one another. Okay. So the opportunities that I have on this app aren't going to always equal that app over there. And they're going to make me maybe feel different. What, that it is what it is. But for me, the adaptability is crucial. I've been doing this now full time almost 5 years. I've been deactivated on 2 apps. And I'm not asking for like any kind of like pat on the back. It is what it is. One was right, one was wrong. Yeah. So you know how that feels, right?
Sure.
But I've documented on this channel, I'm not making less money. I make more money now than I did 5 years ago. So to your point, you really can't make more. That has not been my experience. Do I think most drivers have my experience? No. I've said that probably 100 times. My experience is not normal in some ways. I have a good market. I think my work ethic is pretty good, right? But my point is, you can adapt, and I believe the people that adapt and the people that I say, hey, maybe try this app. Have you tried this? Have you done this? Have you tried working a different day? Have you tried breakfast? Have you, you know, like those people have had success. I've met them personally. Some of them are in the chat, possibly, right? You have to be willing to adapt in this world when it comes to the gig work. If you're only going to work one or two, I think you're going to have an experience like you have and like many people do. But part of being a gig tuber or whatever is showing people different opportunities, a different way of thinking about it, right? So the adaptability is right on. I stand by that because I live that. That's my experience. And to your point earlier, you said if I could change one person's mind about this and how to look at it, I say the same thing, Tim. If one person watches tonight and they're like, you know what, I am going to try this because I'm not having success. Then if they try it and that worked for them, then that video that I made was good for them and it worked out. It's not going to work for everybody because I think a lot of people don't want, they just want it to be easy. This worked to me on a case by case basis is actually very easy. I think that's why the barrier entry is there. But if you want to make a living doing it, it's not. It's not easy to be doing this, and I don't recommend it to anybody.
One thing, one thing that kind of upsets me though about the adaptability thing is it's only expected to go one way. So I'll give you an example. When, it's almost, it makes people nervous to even talk about dirty stacking. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But in the real independent contractor world, I'll do work for 3 or 4 interior designers a day. So I understand that dirty stacking has its risks and the customer is in play and they might get their food later or colder or whatever. And there's things where you have to make critical decisions as to whether or not you can pull off a dirty stack and still be a good customer service person, if that's your
Sure.
goal.
Yeah.
But I think that if we're talking about adaptability, I think that the creativity of the worker needs to come into play and have some kind of handshake relationship with the application and the algorithm and the people that write that thing. I don't think that dirty apping should be I think that it should be embraced and maybe have some kind of system put in place where people can do that so that they can do exactly what you're saying, which is take advantage of a situation where if I've got a $15 Taco Bell order going one way and there's a pizza delivery going that same way, that could be a $35 hour for me. And you should be able to make that decision without having to risk the penalty of the algorithm tracking you and saying and catching on to your
Yeah, I did it this week. I did it this week with Chick-fil-A, Uber Eats and DoorDash at the same time, 2 different times within an hour, and it worked because knowing your marketplace, as long as it's not going in the bad direction, because these applications have windows of time that they give you, and they tell you that it's all timed, and if you can meet that time frame, I've never had any issues with it. But I want to get back to the video talking about adaption and then holding the CEOs accountable as far as money and stuff. Yeah, I think two things can be true at the same time. I think it's embarrassing that the companies pay such low fares and trips, and it's gone down. Instacart used to be $14 minimum. Now it's like you see a batch for $5. When I was doing DoorDash, it was $3, and it went from 3 to 225 or something. Now it's 2. Uber Eats, the base fare is as low as pennies on a stack order sometimes on Uber Eats right now. They can literally pay you $6, and one will be $5.50. And you look at the end of the fare, the second one that you picked up from Chipotle only paid you 50 cents in base pay, right? So I've always thought we shouldn't have any opportunity that's less than a gallon of gas in whatever market you live. I think that's just more than fair. I think that's fine. We're losing our own automobiles. So I think, holding the CEOs accountable for proper wages, especially with inflation and a crazy economic times and unrest of just consumerism and the dollar value and how people feel about it now, like they should not be paying us less year over year. They can, and they get away with it because there's so many people that want to do this work. But for me, I think we have to hold ourselves responsible for the money we make because we are independent in that regard. And that means not, if you know what algorithm's doing this certain thing, you have to adapt and pivot, so you don't get stuck in the algorithm. I'm not trying to be some victim of like, I'm only going to make 20 bucks on rideshare because the algorithm says so. No, I don't believe that at all. I am completely against that because I have done the opposite. I haven't just stayed within that $20 range, right? I think most gig workers make that. That's what the average is in most markets. It's like 20 bucks. I can't live off 20 bucks an hour, right? So we have to adapt strategy, adapt markets sometimes, adapt apps, the time that you give the app. I'm not going to give Uber 50 hours of my week because I'm going to make significantly less, but I might on a week by week give them 10 hours, give DoorDash 10, give Spark 20, give a catering at 5, and I'm going to make more money if I do that. You know, to your point, I think when you're only working one or two apps and you allow them to manipulate you through the algorithm, you're absolutely right. You will be manipulated. And that's a shame on them for taking advantage of Americans. But we have to take control of what we can control. We can't control everything with the apps, but we can control our movements and how we look at them. I do believe that.
Okay. So you've already answered what was going to be my third question. So I'm just going to kind of jump to the end here. And this is kind of a heavy one. I hope you'll be patient with me on this one because it's a sensitive topic and it's something that's due to a monumental, terrifying event in my life. This is kind of important to me. So we might have to stretch it out here. And I hope we can have a pragmatic discussion about this. You did a video called DoorDash drivers calling ICE on Mexican Dashers.
Mm-hmm.
You said that if someone is making less money due to the influx of illegal accounts that they're seeing in their market, that they themselves are culpable because they're not taking personal responsibility to adapt to the situation. However, that whole video, I think it was 11 minutes long, you didn't mention two things that were super critical to me in my experience, especially when I was doing delivery. And that was the culpability of the companies who actually allowed, and even sometimes through the federal government facilitated some of those illegal accounts. And also, and this is, I don't know why people don't talk about this more. Maybe we can hit on this topic a little bit deeper. Something that I documented on my channel was that there are employees, especially in the case of Walmart Spark, there are employees that work inside that will filter the deliveries to the illegal drivers and are actively deactivating and penalizing drivers that they don't like for whatever reason. And this happened to me. I got deactivated because I documented that there was a worker in Walmart on the inside that when she wasn't giving orders to herself as a Walmart employee and also doing Spark, she was filtering orders to the drivers and then coming out and telling me and telling other drivers that were legit that the system was down. So how is the system down when all these people are? So anyway.
Well, I think you're going to bring up something.
Here's my question. Here's my question.
Go ahead.
The question is, how is this person culpable in any way under all those circumstances working against him? Now, you and I agree on one thing, and we don't even really have to talk about it. Calling ICE is a ridiculous thing and a very low IQ reaction in a situation like that.
Yes.
However, there was so much accountability during that time, and it's still going on today, to go around, that I really don't feel like this cat should feel culpable to try to, because there's so much working against him that he has no control over, or she. So how do you justify that person being culpable?
So I think you're referencing the video of a woman. I can't remember if it was Florida or Texas. Maybe the chat knows, but she called, threatened to call ICE on somebody that was Hispanic, and English was her second language. And she was questioning their legality of them being an American citizen and whatever, right? And maybe it's that video, but I've probably made a few on this subject. I get a lot of backlash in this community because first off, how do we know? You mentioned they have illegal accounts. Tim, how do you know that the people that you were either filming or saw, how do you know that they had an illegal account? What evidence do you have that the people that were working in your zone had a fraudulent or illegal account? Let me ask you that question first.
That wasn't my goal in the documentary. My goal was to point out that there were people on the inside that were assisting the illegal accounts. The people that I
No,
thought were
but you just
illegal
said
accounts.
illegal accounts. So how do
Right.
you know the person on the inside? How do you know the person that's getting the order has an illegal account?
Okay. I wish you could watch the video, but how they didn't have any license plates on their cars. First of all,
How do you know that
they
they're illegal if they don't have a license plate? I know Americans in St. Louis. St. Louis, actually, you can look this up, Tim. You guys can fact check this. It's the third city in the country where we have a lot of crazy temp tags and illegal drivers, and most of them are Americans. Did you know that?
okay, but it wasn't even that. And these guys were literally spray painting on the back of their car "Viva Venezuela." Do you know what I mean?
Okay, once again, how
And
do you
then
know that that
so when you
person's
say,
illegal? How do you know that
well,
they're illegal?
because when you go up and you look at their phone, the name is like Jack or Sue, and it's clearly like a dude sitting there. If you went and saw my Twitter feed, I literally just had somebody that was the name was like Barbara or something like that, and a guy shows up at my door. I hand him my ID because he was delivering me alcohol. He tells me to wait. And you and I both know doing deliveries that you can take the snapshot and everything with your phone. This guy comes back with a device that looks like a nuclear football and wants to run my ID through it. What do you think he was doing? So first of all, it didn't match. It didn't match the ID, and he's stealing my identity. So I mean, these things are really easy. It's hard to articulate it during these times without sounding out of bounds with your language. But it's not hard to figure out.
No, what I'm
And
saying
they're
is,
right there standing in groups. You can see them in my video, and you can go look at the accounts, and it doesn't match the person that's holding the phone or
so
phones.
what you're saying is, and I hear what you're saying because this is an issue on the Spark app. I mean, I've known this has been happening for a couple of years. I got on Spark and started doing it about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, and I started noticing things in my parking lot and seeing things and never question if they were illegal or not because they were working. It's not my business, but I get your point because it's been a hot topic in this community. Louis Berti from Delivery TV. He has a fantastic Spanish language channel on YouTube. I've met him personally several times. He's very passionate. He's from Venezuela. He's very passionate about this. He's anti-illegal accounts like, in a big, big way, right? So I know that these things happen. My question is, you're clearly assuming that they're illegal based on a temp tag and how they look. Is that a fair thing to say? Because you can't be,
No,
you said you saw their phone, different name. There's no way that you walked up to, I'm going to assume something here and I could be wrong. You didn't walk up to all these individuals and look at their phone, did you?
absolutely. They're standing right in front of me the whole time. They came up to me and tried to intimidate me. To be fair, most of them were Eastern European. Okay. So in terms of how they look like me. And then you get this pushback from the left, the party that I affiliate myself with all the time is about who else is going to do these jobs if we don't let these people in. Well, hey, I'm trying to do the job. And they
So,
literally came and
yeah,
took
yeah,
my
yeah.
work.
No, I
So
get that. And
they're
I've
doing
heard,
it illegally under somebody else's name, somebody else's social security number, and somebody's going to get an I-10 or whatever the tax document is at the end of the year for work they didn't do. And it's happened.
yeah, I'll say this community, and I've had people on this channel and they've been, depending on your market and how saturated it is and what experience you're having, I completely get the frustration, 100%. My stance is that person from Eastern Europe, Venezuela, whatever country, I do not hold them responsible. Not 1%. This is why. That's the issue. That's the issue with Walmart and the company. Okay. If they're
Well, that's what
allowing,
I'm saying in my question, though, is that we have to hold, this guy shouldn't be culpable for losing his income. So yeah, you're going in the right direction here. I just kind of exactly, why aren't we holding the companies and the people on the inside more culpable for this person's
we,
loss?
we absolutely should. The problem is they've got all the money and all the power. They make the decisions. They control the apps. They control who gets onboarded, they control that. We don't have control over that. So for me, and I take a lot of heat from this, I'm not mad at the guy doing or the woman doing the same job that I'm doing for the same reasons. They're trying to feed their family. They're trying to eat. And my whole point with all this is I think our current administration has done a really fantastic job of painting certain groups of people as the bad people in this country. Okay. And when we look at, as a Spark community, we look at these people that look this way and they speak this language, we look at them as the bad guy. I stand 10 toes down. They are not the bad people. Now, because Americans have illegal accounts, well, I have friends that have YouTube channels. I have friends that I know they work off their wife's account in the same manner that the people you're talking about from Eastern Europe or Venezuela. That's a legal activity, right? That's not, and they're Americans. They have multiple accounts. Like, so I think we like to just pick and choose who we get mad at sometimes. And I get passionate about this because to me, this is where maybe we agree. We can find common ground. That's on Walmart and DoorDash and Uber because they're taking advantage of individuals that just want an opportunity, flooding the markets with whoever. They don't care who. Tim, I was deactivated from DoorDash over a year and a half ago. I got a brand new DoorDash account maybe not even 2 months ago, maybe a month and a half, with my same driver's license. All I did was change the email and the phone number. So and I did that to show how easy it is to manipulate the system and how DoorDash and these apps don't care, right? So for me, I don't hold when I'm talking about a Spark driver. I'll talk about you because you did I guess a series on these drivers in your marketplace. Like, I'm not getting mad at those drivers. I can't. They're doing the same job I am, probably for the same reason. And I'll get heat for that. At the end of the day, it's my responsibility not to allow somebody that is, whatever word you want to use, an alien, illegal, they don't speak any English, they have temp tags. I'm not going to allow that person to make more money than me.
Can I interject something right there?
Go ahead.
So I think that there's a hidden thing in all of that, and that's that these people are lied to. The immigrants that are coming in. So my family went from 4 white people, me, my brother, my sister, my mom, and dad, to now being over 70% Filipino, East Asian, and Lebanese. So all of these people have come in legally through the system. And to a person, when I talk to them, they're told, and this is going the legal route, they're told that money just grows on trees over here and that opportunity awaits them. What the trick of it is, and the reason that we have such an influx that we did in the last administration, this is the truth of it. It's because America needs an underclass to keep the scam going, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you're right in the regard that we shouldn't blame them, but I would add a subcontext to that in saying that we shouldn't blame them because they were lied to. You know what I mean? Like they're over here. The very first thing they do is they hand them a phone and a DoorDash account. They give them a car, an apartment, and they get them in debt. Now go deal with DoorDash. And by the way, good luck starting your own business.
Lied to by whom?
Well, lied to by they're lied to by whoever it is that's telling them to come to America for all this opportunity. That's the belief system. And so when you go through the bureaucracy of actually coming from somewhere to go to America, all they do, it's like an indoctrination class, is they just overwhelm you with this thought that everything is just going to be great once you get here. You're going to have all this opportunity. That's going the legal route. If you're coming in illegally and you're just jumping through the fence because you think that there's opportunity here, it's wrong. America and the system and the capitalist thing that we do are exploiting those people. They're using them, and because America needs an underclass. Because I can't compete for the same wages that they're going to work for, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to kind of add subcontext to piggyback on what you were saying.
Yeah, I think that's always happened. I think the gig economy is making it easier. I think with social media and our phones and our devices, we know everything at a quicker rate. This country's always done that. The inception of this country is taking advantage of people that have less, that are willing to do something for nothing or for free. It's always been that way. Right? Can we agree on that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the gig economy just catapulted it into and interjected itself in certain sectors that made it easier for the billionaires of these companies to do it in a way. And they give the workers no rights, and they hide behind the algorithm. The companies do that. We all know that, right? My stance is I'm not going to get mad at the guy that was lied to or whatever. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. And I don't have any data to back this up. I don't think that there are that many people with illegal fraudulent accounts. I think there's a big number, but when you look at the pie, a percentage of total Spark drivers or Uber drivers, the vast majority of them are legit people that have legit accounts. I believe that. I just do. And, as far as I think you made a comment about like lie to about opportunities because other Americans won't do that work. The people that are coming here, if they are illegal or whatever, they clearly are getting opportunities. They're getting yours. You just said that. So they're not being lied to because they're being able to pay rent or have a car and whatever. So there are opportunities for them. Now, if it's being taken away from you and
But
I,
it's pretty widely known that they're taking all the bad orders. So how I mean, is it more opportunistic for the system, or is it more opportunistic for the worker?
in St. Louis, that's not we have, when I was doing Spark, I got to know a couple of these guys, okay? There'd be about 10 to 12 of them, a couple girls, mostly guys. Those guys were making more money than probably most of us. Okay, I think there's this misconception that the Indians and the Venezuelans take the bad orders. Sometimes Americans take those bad orders too. White and black people, Asians, they take bad orders too, right? I think ignorance is all across the board. But the Venezuelans that live in St. Louis, those dudes were making more money than me sometimes. I think,
So one thing, sorry, go ahead.
just because they don't, they can figure out how to make good money. Like, just because, the dollar valuation in other countries is different than here, like, they're not going to all take trash in the
Right,
same
but
way
it
that
goes back to
all
what I was saying.
Americans.
It
Go
was
ahead.
going back. That goes back to what I was saying earlier, though, is that if you go watch some of the videos, um, two cop cars showed up at the Walmart that I was working at.
Mm-hmm.
When the cop car showed up, about 12 cars, which was about 70 to 80% of the workforce in delivery that day, left. And you see, and I filmed during that time, all of the orders, like the legit bangers, start coming up. So it goes, what you're saying, I understand that they're making more money, but I want to go back to reiterate that there are people on the inside that are filtering those orders. It's real. And it may not be in every store, but it happens, like it
No,
happened right in front of me.
I can agree with that. I've heard it from other people. You're not the first. I definitely think there are some isolated incidents at stores that have bad management, bad Spark employees that are helping their friends or their cousins and facilitating orders. And I don't work at Walmart, so I don't know how that works. But you're not the first person to say that. So I definitely realize that that's happening. I don't think it happens as often as we think it does. I think, this is my opinion, when drivers have bad experiences and you're sitting in the hot sun for an hour or two, you've made only $10 in 2 hours, and you see other people taking orders. We need somebody to blame, and we're going to assume a lot out of frustration. And I think that's normal. I think we're humans. We do that. I've done it. Maybe you've done it on some level, but I don't think it's happening as rampant as it is. And I will say this, not to give Walmart credit or DoorDash or Uber credit, since these things have happened, and it's been made on the news channels and whatever, we've seen them put in stricter identification policies and real ID on Walmart Spark now, where you got to have either a real ID or a driver's license and picture of social security number. So since they've realized that there's been a problem, the companies, all of them, have put stricter identification processes in place to try to help that. Do I think it can block everything? No, there's a way around all this stuff. But I think it's definitely helped. So I think that the companies have recognized there's an issue. I just don't think they reacted as quickly as they should have, because clearly it was to their benefit, because they don't care who's delivering the stuff. And
Exactly.
I don't think most customers do either. You get some isolated incidents where it's like a customer might care if the person delivering looks a certain way and doesn't speak English, but 99% of consumers, they don't care. Most of these are leave it doors. So the companies know that, they prey on that, and that's on them. But to their credit, they have put much stricter identification processes in the app.
So with all that being said, and kind of going back to the beginning, with the ICE element aside, do you still think that person should be culpable for not making more money with all of those things that we just covered?
I'll say this. I feel bad for that driver that isn't making money because their opportunities are being taken away from anybody, illegal especially or not. But if you continue, like I said in the video, to do the same thing and expect a different result as an independent contractor, misclassified, that's on you. So if I'm going to sit in a Walmart parking lot and wait a month because I think it's going to get better, at the end of the month, if I didn't change anything else, I'm responsible. Not Walmart, not the East Eastern European driver that has an illegal account, that's on me. I'm not an employee. There's no HR department. Okay. I have to figure out a way to be ahead of them. And I've always talked about, especially in the last 2 years or so, we need to be 6 months ahead. So right now, I'm thinking about what's going to be popping in the springtime. What apps do I need to onboard? What can I be looking at? What's the next wave of what people in St. Louis, as far as consumers, what are they going to be wanting at that time? So I can get on that app or change my focus. I am not going to just throw my hands up and say, "Oh, I'm just mad at everybody. They got to fix it." They're not going to fix it. The companies might do certain little things, but at the end of the day, I can control more of what I make than what legislation is going to help me, or the president, or the apps changes something. I can control that, and that's what I try to tell my audience. We got to stop playing the victim, like, woe is me, oh my god, this is the end. Like, no, we cannot do that. When we do that, I think, in my opinion, that's when we get lost and we don't make money, and then our kids don't eat, and our rent's past due, and then I can't take my wife on a date next week. No, I'm going to figure it out. So that's where I stand on that.
The last thing I want to say, and then actually I have some work I got to do, and I really appreciate you having me on. I've enjoyed the conversation.
So have I. I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing your time with us tonight.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is I want to encourage everybody out there. I think one of the most important, I grew up in a family of Texans, even though I was born and raised here in Portland, Oregon. And one of the most valuable things that I learned growing up from my father was get out there and fail a few times, get out there and take a few on the chin. I would like everybody here, if your trajectory for your immediate life is going to be doing gig work for, let's just say, another year or 2 years, for whatever reason, whatever your reasons are, take the time to go talk to your city councilors, find out who's in charge. I went down for an entire year. I talked to city councilors, the Portland Bureau of Transportation, ombudsman people that acted as city attorneys that were supposedly facilitating communication between the gig apps and the regulating bodies. And the reason that I want people to do that is that I think that it would be really important and really eye-opening for people to go experience the bureaucracy and the stonewalling and the ignorance that actually goes on in the city construct, because they absolutely have no idea what gig work is doing. All of that education that I went through to be a construction contractor, that taught me all my rights as an independent contractor. Why isn't the state of Oregon administering those same laws for what is supposedly an independent contractor on the apps? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So go out, take a few on the chin, have some conversations with people, and you're going to find out that either they're super unaware, they're super uninformed, or they're just not motivated. And I'll end with this. There was the Senate Bill 1166, and I got there late. I didn't know about the Senate bill in Oregon until about a month before it went to the floor.
That's like 2019, 2020?
Oh, no, sir. This was just this past summer.
Okay.
And so I think it got 2 sessions on the floor and 1 vote, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. We've had 4 sessions up here in Salem, Oregon at the Capitol to try and override daylight savings time. Okay. I mean, we were literally trying to talk about giving workers rights and a fair wage in supposedly one of the most blue states in the union. Mm-hmm. And they want to talk about what time we go to bed or whatever over that. So I know it sounds ridiculous when it comes out of my mouth, but go take a few lumps, go talk to those people so that you can kind of understand a little bit more about your rights and how they're being manipulated.
Listen, I'll say this. I can respect anybody that wants to do something for them that might help themselves, but for the greater good of a community of individuals that are being lied or manipulated. Or I completely get that. I think if it's done appropriately, we need more of that. I tend to be maybe a little selfish at times and think, well, I got a channel, that's how I'm helping. I could probably do more in that vein. But I think sometimes if it's, in my opinion, if it's not right legislation, if you're not talking to the right bureaucrat, it's a waste. And I think we've seen that with all these strikes, and there's been like 1,000 strikes in the rideshare community over the last like 10 years. And I'm not anti that. Do what you got to do, but at the end of the day, like, most of it doesn't work. And I've always told people, like, hey, like if you want a legislation person to do something for you, if you spend that time on yourself, learning a new trade, getting out of the gig economy, I don't recommend anybody do this full time. I've said that a lot on this channel.
Same. Yep.
I've said that a lot, right? If you could work on a trade, work on yourself, work on whatever, right? You're going to be better off than teaming up with a legislation person, right? Because I think a lot of that just gets lost in the mud. But you know, I hear what you're saying. At the end of the day, I appreciate you bringing those videos and asking those questions. I thought you did it in a very respectful way. I think there's some commonality within that. I don't think we're too far off on some things, but I do respect your opinion on, well, there's some discrepancies in tone and messaging. I totally get it. I've got like 3,000 videos. They're not all perfect, you know, but I do appreciate your time tonight. I think the chat liked some of the things you said and just opening their eyes to some things and thinking about things differently. So I do sincerely appreciate that.
Yeah, same. Have a great rest of your night, and thanks for having me on.
All right, man. Thank you.
You bet.
That wasn't that bad. See, debates can be civil. They can be good. Now I'm gonna open a live stream up. Keep it on topic. If anybody wants to join up and ask me more questions, or if you have a thought or opinion on some of the things that Tim said, some of the things that he brought up. I stand very firm in what I believe in and how I choose to do the work and the videos that I make. And doesn't mean I'm always right, but I stand by that because that's what I believe in, right? So for me, adapting is crucial in any line of work, any line of life. I'm not going to play the victim and look at the app like they need to do everything for me. I think they need to improve some stuff. But at the end of the day, I can do more for myself than any app can do for me or a politician. I've said that for the last couple of years, right? Let me see what the chat's saying. I'm gonna put the StreamYard link up in just a moment if anybody wants to join up. Or maybe we just end the video now. I don't know. But I do appreciate Tim for coming up. I thought it was a pretty good conversation. One that you don't get on a lot of these gig channels. And I hope that you guys got something from that. So 8.5. I'll take an 8.5. Yeah, Um, in our correspondence on email, I can be pretty petty. I'm flawed like that. And we definitely had some back and forth. None of it was disrespectful, but I didn't know what to expect tonight. But I thought it went better in some ways than I expected, and I thought maybe we probably could have got at each other a little bit more and had even a deeper conversation. But I think he had some time restraints there. I mean, that's okay. So, but I thought it was good. I think he had some good, valid points, some solid arguments, some questions. Like I think with my videos, I got so many of them. If you see just a few, it can be confusing because it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Is that, you know what I'm saying? So I think there's something to that. He conducted himself. Oh, yeah, Ryan, actually, I thought it was a great conversation. I really do. I really do. I like these kind of conversations, difference of opinion. I've always had them on this channel. I don't like people that just come up and agree with everything. Like, you can't learn anything if you're around people that are always like-minded. You can never learn, right? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the StreamYard link up in just 1 second, guys. If anybody wants to come up, I'm gonna have that up for you guys, and you guys could tell me what you think. Anything that you could add to this. I know I'd probably say some things about the America and the illegals that you do not agree with. I stand by that stuff. I just do, and we don't always have to agree with that. I can go on my perspective, my experience, what I see, what I know, what I feel, and I stand by that 1,000%, 10 toes down with everything I said about that. If you want to talk about that, we can talk about that. If you want to talk about gig tubers and if we're doing a disservice to the community, we can talk about that. All right, let me go ahead and put this in. Nighthawk, good question. So he doesn't make videos anymore. It was, I think, Rideshare Beware channel. I think if you type that in, he's only got 4 or 5 videos, and the last one was from over like a year ago. So he's not making content anymore. I think he said that even in the beginning. So maybe you can find him on X, or is it X, or maybe he's somewhere else that I'm not aware of. I haven't really seen that kind of stuff. So, all right. So let me go ahead and put this link in. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, you're welcome, Nighthawk. No problem. Appreciate y'all. Hit that thumbs up for a solid debate. Civilized. All right, let me go here. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay, there's the link. I'm gonna pin it up at the top if anybody wants to come in and add anything to that conversation, anything that you heard that you agree or disagree with. Maybe I misspoke. Maybe you thought that was a waste of everybody's time. You can come up and tell us about it if you want. All right. 1 second. Let me see if I can. I always have a hard time pinning this when it's in the chat like that. Okay, hold on. Pin message. There we go. It's up at the top now. Hit that thumbs up. Appreciate y'all. If you're getting value from the content, go ahead and put that in. Ryan says that Mr. BetonYou don't get a big head, but have always thought you are best chatting with one or moderating with like 4 people in chat. Yeah, I always like that. I always like having people up. Always enjoy that. All right, Jason, I see you there. 1 second. All right, give about another minute. See if anybody else wants to join up. We could have a couple people come on if you'd like. We do have a little bit more time. It's only 10 o'clock, so show doesn't need to end anytime soon. Toyo says, very solid debate. Next debate I'm waiting on is Real Talk with Roy against Dino. I feel like they've done that a few times already, but yeah, I'm sure they'll always have something there, right? All right, let's see. Put some more comments in about what you guys thought. Anything you heard that you disagree with vehemently. Let's see, maybe some comment. Yeah, that was Charlie Curtis. Biggie Smalls forgot his popcorn. Antoine, what's up, man? How you doing, brother? Bobby, what's up, man? Very articulate guest. Well done, gentlemen. Yeah, he was good. I knew he would be. I watched one of his videos. I was like, he's gonna come with some facts, some information, some questions. He's well spoken. I knew that. I'm not inviting up some clown on the show. Like, I knew that. It was part of the reason why I thought it would be a good live show. Was because of who it is, right? So, all right. Another 30 seconds. Anybody wants to come up? The StreamYard link is pinned at the top of the comment section. Go ahead and click that and let us know what you thought about tonight's conversation. Anything that you'd like to add to that. Appreciate that, Dashland 61. Were you born in 61? Because if you're born in 61, that means you are my dad's age. He was born in 61 as well. Or maybe 61 means you're 61. I don't know. It's probably a year, right? Probably the year you were born. Let's make it happen. Yeah, somebody get Dino on. We'll bring them both up tonight if you want. All right, I'm not gonna make Jason wait any longer. Let's go ahead and bring him up. How are you?
Hey, good. Can you hear me? This is my first time doing this. This is like all so small. I can't see anything.
Oh yeah, no, I can hear you just fine. I can see you. Your screen, your box is small, but I think we can see and hear you just fine. You're okay. Good.
I'm not concerned with my appearance, but as long as you can hear me.
No, we're good. We're good. So how much of that did you watch? What do you think? What were your takeaways from that? I'll give you the floor is yours.
Yeah, I watched most of it. Whatever chopping block this may put me on either side. I mean, I think that, there was agreements and disagreements on both sides, but I think he came with receipts, as the kids would say. And I thought he was pretty decent. I thought he didn't say what I thought the things that he was going to say. So I was surprised and entertained. And
what were some of the things you thought you were expecting him to say?
Honestly, I thought he was going to be like the typical Pedro hater and just go off on like a nut rant. Honest to God, that's what I thought. Yeah. And the guy he's like, he might not hold like a doctorate or anything in it, but I mean, he is formally educated in gig law because he has to work in his state, and I'm like, oh, wow, cool. We got someone that like actually knows, like, and it validates some of the things that we think over the years doing this kind of work. And it's like, wow, so we're right. Like, they probably shouldn't be doing this or doing that or,
Yeah, good point. Jason, so where do you do where are you at? What city? What state?
So I'm in, my town has become famous in a bad way. Where old Mangione got arrested, Altoona. The one with the famous McDonald's that had to get shut down on Google because everyone was saying there was rats in the kitchen and all that.
Oh,
So
really? Oh, I hadn't heard that one. That's
oh, you
wild.
didn't know that? Yeah, yeah.
No, I didn't. I didn't. How long ago was that?
Dude, we're the same age. Time goes by. I'll tell you that it was a month ago. Damn, it was a year ago, probably. I don't know. Whenever he
Yeah.
was arrested, that's when this all went down. Our town was famous. We had all the big news networks here, reporters,
Yeah.
and yeah. And anyway, but to give you better perspective from those that don't know, we're like a half an hour south of Penn State, so
Yeah.
I go up there
Yeah.
too. And it's so weird because I do a lot of the neighboring areas. They're all kind of like here because my town is the typical area for Pennsylvania, I would say. State College, that's what the real name is. It's State College. It's not Penn State. We just say Penn State so people know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's different. It's like an island. First of all, in my opinion, it's the nicest town in Pennsylvania, but it's because the university's there and it basically prints money, So like everything operates different there. There are people literally from all over the world, cultures, languages. I just love going up there. But I always joke, and this is a good thing, it's like 10 pounds of dirt in a 5-pound bag. Like when you go up there, it's just hustle and bustle, and it's always so exhausting. And dude, don't even talk about working during a football game.
Oh, no way. No way.
Dude, I did it one time.
Not at Penn State. There's what is it? 80 to 100,000 people there, probably just in the game or the vicinity at any given Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I did one time. I did Rideshare. That was the worst. And this was funny. I had a dude, middle-aged guy, probably only 5-10 years older than me. He had 2 of his college-age daughters that were in the back seat, and we were riding. And I never, even though I know State College well, I never did, Rideshare up there before during a football game. It was so bad that when we got back to his apartment, we're sitting there, and I looked over, and he looks at me. We're like, right? Like
there's no way I could. Those kind of it's funny, especially with Rideshare, at least in St. Louis, on a much smaller scale than where you're at.
Yeah,
we would have like a Cardinals baseball game, so you got 60,000 people there or whatever, right, in the ballpark village and within the game. And to try to pick somebody up in that and then leave, it's 2 hours. It's crazy,
Yeah. So what I'm talking. Yeah, and to do that, I did it for 4 hours straight, and I have this weird thing. People could probably relate. Like when I'm in the zone, I have delayed responses to things like physically, so I'm going and I don't realize anything's even happened, and I stopped to get gas, and that gave me a second to come down, and I'm like, I had no intention on quitting because, dude, you're in the zone up there, the energy, it's Penn State, there's a football game, we want to keep going. And now that I'm older, working is like my socialization. I get to get 2 birds with 1 stone. So I'm like, yeah, I'm hanging out with people, meeting people. I don't want to quit. I stopped to get gas, and it was like a light switch went off. I'm like, I'm going home. And I got in the car and took the half-hour ride down the highway, and
No, I don't blame you. I want to ask you something before I get to the next guest, Jason. You mentioned Tim talking about the rights of independent contractors and him being knowledgeable about it and how we feel about that and how the companies, take advantage of that, however we want to look at it. Is there anything that, when we're talking about being classified as independent contractors, as we are, what about that either concerns you the most or upsets you the most, or what about that? Do you get what I'm trying to say here?
Mostly, I mean, enough that I could go off on it. I'm a talker, as you can tell, but I want to understand what you're asking me. So please elaborate further.
So he mentioned having a problem with us being independent contractors and how the labor laws are written and how the companies take advantage of that, and it's done very purposefully. So is there, you do this work still currently, correct?
Yeah, about 4.5 years now. Yeah.
The way that it is right now, us being independent contractors, are you in agreement with that? Do you think we need to be classified a different way? Is there anything that you like to see changed with independent contractor code or law when it comes to food or driver delivery? Is that better?
Yeah, well, that's what I thought you were asking.
Okay,
and as long as we're still on the same page, dude, I could go off on this. I could take over Pedro's channel and give me
your elevator pitch. Give me 2, 3, 4 minutes. Give me a couple. When we're talking about this stuff, how do you feel about it?
Okay, well, I have so much to say. This isn't going to blend together smoothly, so I'm just going to grab a couple pieces.
Okay.
I have a weird take, and hear me out. And I say this with a grain of salt, cross fingers, whatever, however you want to word it. I don't think this industry should exist. This is what I mean by that. Obviously, I like doing it. Nothing bad. It's a bit of a comedy. I'm saying this. If something can't exist on its own merit by its own system, then it needs to go back to the drawing board. And I'm not saying I'm a fan of this guy. You know how the reels are. We see things that we don't want to see or not. But the TikToker, the older millennial, something came up. I saw a reel him commenting on Walmart. Well, they can't pay their employees $3, which he's a little wrong on the math. I won't get in on that. But that just shows how tight the skim is on the top of the thing. It like the dude who is power washing with his own truck can't work hard enough fast enough because he's doing a real service. He's actually performing a real thing. If they can't pay us properly and do things properly and run things properly, then they need to go back to the drawing board and start over. I am only giving a drop in an ocean of what I could say this. I'm trying to keep it tight.
No, I actually like where you're going with this. So let's go this way with this.
Yeah.
Going back to the drawing board. Let's just keep it to food delivery. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think that would look like if you could, like, if you would go to the drawing board with them? How would you reimagine it where it could work on its own, as you said?
I would do things exactly like corporations used to do. Again, I don't want to put a time frame on this because I'm getting old, but let's just say 10 years ago. Just pull a number out here. And like corporations used to have, like, I compare things to the military, bit of a background there, whenever you have a captain of a ship or a colonel of the base, he's the commander. He runs that, and that's the same thing in the civilian world with the store, with the general manager. You were, I guess, the commander of your, restaurant you used to run or whatever. You're the commander. You are responsible for that. Now you answer, of course. But what happens there? That's your ship. That's your boat. You run that boat, your base. So everything works off of that. And also you work locally. You know your local contractors. I met a guy super, super quick, won't get off on it. He traveled around to certain companies doing like hot water heater repair and stuff. Instead of them just hiring somebody local for 10 minutes, they fly this guy all over the country. The money that they're blowing on this kind of stuff. I think it's the same way with this. They need to do the hiring and the firing. That doesn't happen anymore with corporations. When you apply, you're applying to the central thing. That's why the kids are getting like resumes now and writing in white font so that the AI computer picks up on things because they know a human isn't reading it. You don't go in and apply to the manager anymore. You applied to the computer. So getting back on this, what this means, without getting off of a rant here, is they should have set up little bases around the country, I think. Start off small, work big. That's how the world works. And then they hire people. You answer to somebody. So when something like what happens to me tonight, where I got deadlocked at an Instacart, kind of like what happened to you a couple weeks ago, you're not stuck, literally. Dude, my energy is gone. This is me being low right now. I got wasted. I got locked in on a 2-hour Instacart tonight that I couldn't get out of, that I was stuck. Man. Dude, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. That shouldn't have happened, and there was nothing I can do about it. Why can't I call my boss and tell him what happened and get back? That was advantageous to nobody, and it hurt all of us. Me, the company, the customer, the store, everybody. It hurt everybody. And it didn't have to happen. And how many more things could I not have delivered that it affects down the thing? So things should be responsible on their own island. These shouldn't be coming from a computer. I know on the overall they're making money, but are they? Because like if Walmart can't even give all of their employees $3 an hour raise, can they? Like, what is this? What's going on? Because my dad retired from the railroad. The railroad works. I can assure you of that. There's no problems there. My hospitals, they work. Like so I could name a million businesses that do work and a million that don't. It's so. Yeah. If that answers your question, I can elaborate.
No, I appreciate that. And you mentioned, when I asked you about going back to the drawing board, and it's almost like you're asking, like, we want something a little more localized to where there's support for drivers, and we had somebody to go to when we had an issue or something, and you talked about, like, we're getting everything's in the computer. It's like, the computers are hiring or firing, and that's how the apps work. But I do remember the Uber, when they started, they had something similar to that. They would have like these hubs where they'd find their Uber drivers for rideshare, and they would like onboard them, and that's in the beginning. And then I think when they got so big and they realized, well, we don't need to do that anymore. We can attract them a different way that's more cost effective. Then everything just kind of went to shit, because it's like they have, they're taking away their liability at the point, because everything's just on an app. We don't have to see anybody in person to person,
Right.
It will be hard to go back to that. There'd be benefits to it, but I wonder if we'd have the same opportunity. I wonder if like that would minimize the opportunity that we would see in some way. Would we make more or less? I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
I don't know either. Yeah. I bet you it would still come out in the end, though, the same. Even though we would take two totally different paths to get there, I think it would. Because if it's truly good and it works and it's a good idea, then it'll get there. And it'll get there right. Not like, pardon the language, screwing everybody like you and me getting locked in Instacart. Dude, I know your pain, because this isn't my first time having that. And when I watched you going through that on the video, I'm like, oh, bro. Like, I felt like we need to do like a fist bump, like.
It sucks, and that's part of it. Let's welcome Roy to the show. What's up, Roy? It definitely sucks. I sometimes think, though, like with any kind of, when we're trading time for money, whether you have a W-2 independent contract to work with, there's always going to be something that there's going to be an obstacle, right? So I always tell myself, because I get super frustrated, Jason. Like if I have to run into something, it's like I get frustrated. I turn the camera on. I'm going to talk my shit, whatever, right? But at the end, I always remind myself, like, okay, well, how many times does this happen? Is it as big of a deal as I'm making it? Sometimes I tell myself yes. Sometimes I tell myself no. It still hasn't gotten that bad for me to where I stopped doing it altogether, so there's still some level of value, but these companies definitely hide behind that IC tagline. They do it for tax benefits, obviously. There's so many, it's, I just don't know I don't know what the answer is to make it better. You know what I'm saying?
I do, and believe me, I'm a person of business too, background and everything. We had our own business for a couple of decades, so I know how all this works. So like you manage some. I know what you're talking about. Like I'm not coming from a total idiot perspective. I'm not pretending like I have all the answers either. But it's real easy when you're getting screwed. You can see the problems.
Absolutely, you can see the problems. Roy, what do you got to add? What do you think about the our guest Tim that was on earlier? Give us some thoughts.
With him, you definitely can tell he's against the illegals. We can definitely tell that.
Sure.
But then again, he also lives in a sanctuary city where they protect him. So to assume that they're not going to be out there working when they're in a protected city, that's something he needs to go talk politically wise with his people, not worry about what the apps are doing. That's a city thing. That's where you live thing. So for the apps, even because you got these cities giving out this stuff to these illegals. We already see it with California, with the CDLs. We see other states doing the same thing, New York. So these sanctuary cities that he lives in, which is a major one, that's part of the problem. His city is part of the problem. Not the apps aren't really the problem. His city is part of the problem because they encourage this kind of stuff.
Well, Portland's been like that for 20 years. For 20 years at least. Yeah.
So if you got cities out there giving them free IDs, you got them giving them this, giving them that, they're going to take advantage of it. And the apps are like you said, the apps can't protect everything and watch everything. They just see what's uploaded into the computer and they go from there. So that's he needs to take that up with the city where he lives, or state, whatever. But you guys are never going to be independent. I've said this I don't know how many times. You guys are not independent anything. You're pretty much employees. In my eyes, you're always going to be employees. They control your scheduling, not all the time. And you guys argue with that. No, I can do whatever I want. There's plenty of people out there that cannot schedule whenever they want. They control your money. There is that cap thing. I think is for reals.
You still think that?
I can guarantee you, I'm 100% sure. That's why they advertise it. They advertise, you can make up to $20 an hour. They're not going to go above $20 an hour if you're only working one app. I think you break the cap by doing multiple apps.
Yes.
I think that's how you break your cap.
And that's part of adapting. And aren't we? Don't you think we're responsible for knowing that? Or once we know it, then doing something different rather than just staying in an app and hoping and wishing that it would be different?
But it depends on what apps are available in your market. Some people may not have the capability or the apps that you have access to in their market. So at that point, they're kind of screwed in that point because their market doesn't support all these different apps that you have access to because you're in a bigger, busier city. They don't have that same ability to adapt as you get to adapt.
Yeah.
So there's an issue with that too. So
I want to ask Jason a question. Jason, what apps do you have currently? Like what apps, gig apps do you work with?
I got about a dozen or so in total, but
Okay.
my main ones are Flex. I got my own thing with Walmart Spark going on. I'm hoping to get back on. I got deactivated from the bank glitch, so I didn't even do anything. Are you aware of the bank glitch?
I heard about it when they changed the pay card or whatever. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
So I'm hoping to get back. I have no arbitration, but we're the first one, but whatever. But so that's in limbo. Uber, I do that. Obviously, DoorDash has turned into a filler app. Grubhub, and it's funny because as he was talking there, I wanted to say just super quick. It's funny how different ones are busy. Like everyone always kind of like bags on Grubhub. They're like, oh, it's the filler, it's the garbage. Here too, but in Penn State, when I work up there, it's banging and it pays too. So that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got 12. That's a lot. That's more than I have. Yeah.
Yeah. About 12. And Roadie, all the common ones, Instacart.
Okay, you got the basic ones. Okay.
And my favorite thing to do, which it bit me on the rear tonight, is actually delivering for my local grocery store chain, doing deliver only with groceries from Instacart. I turn on Instacart and I don't turn my phone off. I turn the screen off and they get sent to my watch so I can go about my house and it's just right down the street. And when one pops up, they usually tip better and I can do those. And it usually works out for me. But I got bit in the rear tonight because that's just the way things work. But all the ones, I got a couple more. Like the ones like the property evaluation, like I View It, those kinds of things. Like I'm always looking at new ones, Like I was watching King of the Hill and they had those new ones on there, like where the guys are going like doing like jobs around the house. I started digging those up. I haven't signed up for them yet. Tried some of your catering apps, but they weren't busy here. They were busy in State College, but So. But yeah, as far as the main ones goes, the ones I keep on my front home screen are the big ones. DoorDash, Uber, Roadie, Flex, which you might want. I know you're not really into the Flex, and this is something for other people to know too. Because what I say, every app has advantages and disadvantages. It's just so weird, the weird oddities that happen with all of them, and good and bad. And some of them are on the customer side, which is even stranger. But some are the way they function. And I don't know if people are aware of this or not, but Flex. If you get scheduled for a route or whatever and you show up, like it's not like when you show up for an Uber and the order is there, you get paid Zilcho. They give you what they promised you. So if you have $100 coming to you and you show up, bang, you go home for $100. Or maybe they have like 2 packages because that's all that was there. You deliver 2 packages, you go home $100. I don't want to mispaint it in tonight's theme. I don't want to mispaint that. Those are rare.
No, I get it. I've heard that before, and I think that's obviously maybe one of the benefits of that app is there's a guarantee money regardless of if there's an issue on their end. But I have heard that. I probably won't do. That's not an app I probably want to add on. It's probably too late because the holidays are coming. They're already busy. But Roy, I want to ask you a question. Because I know you talk about this about the employee. Do you honestly think we're closer to being employees than independent contractors?
Yes.
I agree.
And the one thing I'll agree with him on is the legislation part. If you're going to do the legislation, you got to do it based on the independent contractor. If that's what you're being assigned as, then I will agree with him on that they should fall under the same rules as a true independent contractor in that state. That to me would be legit. But like I said, if the apps aren't, they pay too much money to be controlled by these politicians, to be honest with you. But what were you saying? But I'll agree with him. If you're truly an independent contractor, in my opinion, you should fall under the same rules as your city when it comes to any type of independent contract work. I would think legislation.
Yeah. So do you think? I don't think we're closer to being employees. I think I
do. They control everything. They control a lot of when people can actually go to work. No different than my schedule. Some of you have to schedule. I have a schedule. You can be deactivated.
Hold on,
Customers
but
are
Roy,
your.
there's only one app you have to schedule on. That's DoorDash. There's no, that's from what I understand.
But 99% of people do DoorDash. Everybody does DoorDash.
But okay, so my question then, should we, because of
And
DoorDash,
isn't Uber Eats starting to do that thing too, where they have the red zones now, where it's busy, where you're able to dash?
I don't. Maybe that's certain markets here. I can just turn it off and on.
Okay, because I think that's starting to come. Because I saw videos about that where they're this is you got shit like that. So
yeah,
but even
I mean, they definitely control your movement or lack of ability to get on sometimes based on a cheer program. I get all that, but I don't think we're closer to being employees.
But you're still scheduled when you have to wait till 1:30 in the afternoon to get your possible jobs. That's just like having a schedule. That's just like being scheduled, because you got to wait for your shit to come through, and then you get to pick what you want to do, and they dictate when you do it. You don't have the dictation. It says, okay, you got to be there at 8 o'clock. You got to be there at 8 o'clock. That's no different than me. I get scheduled. I got to be there at 9 o'clock. I'm there at 9 o'clock.
But if you're an independent contractor doing some kind of construction work, whatever, you have a schedule then too. Independent contractor work, you have a schedule. If you have a gig,
not necessarily. Not necessarily.
If you have a gig,
if you have to change.
If you're a musician,
not necessarily,
you're an independent contractor, and you have a gig, you got to be at a bar at 8 p.m. There's a schedule with every line of work. If you're a doctor, if you're this,
but not necessarily.
Every line of work has
not
schedule.
Necessarily. But if you're your own boss in some situation, because if you're in your boss in your own situation, if I shoot long on let's say I'm a plumber, I'm an independent contractor plumber. If I shoot long on an order, or let's say I got to do an extra 45 minutes worth of work, I am not going to get penalized. I can reschedule if I have to. I can say, call my next one. Okay, I got to call you. I'm going to be an hour and a half late because I ran late on this one. Not going to be a problem. You can't do that. You can't do that. You guys are 5 minutes, 2 minutes late dropping off an order. You get a ding. You get dinged. You get penalized. You won't do that. A true independent contractor won't get. They have the ability to make those changes on their own to benefit their schedule. You don't get that with the apps.
Yeah, I see that point. But I think if we were more closer to employees, we'd have some kind of benefit. We'd have some kind of protections, and we don't. That's why I don't think we're closer to that model. I think it's almost in the middle in some ways.
But see, that's the only thing that separates you from me is I get benefits because I'm protected under the law. You're not, but you're treated just like me. You have to schedule some apps. You don't have the ability to dictate when an order this or that. You don't have those abilities. I don't have those abilities either. So
no, sure, you're absolutely right. But you have to work tomorrow. Don't you work on Mondays?
Yes.
You got to go in. If I choose not to want to work tomorrow, I don't got to do shit. I can stay in bed all day.
No,
that's a benefit.
I got personal time off. If I need to take it off, I can take it off. I get those benefits.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Or if I'm sick,
I
get sick pay. So if I get sick, I got sick pay. I'm not saying I'm gonna call in on purpose to be sick, but people do it. People do it. But
Jason, what do you think? Are we? You and I we talked about independent contractor in the beginning of our convo. Are we closer? Are we like employees in some regards, or are we closer to being independent? What do you say to that?
I think that it's like most things in my life. I found out when you try to decide or figure out if something's on one side or the other. If you truly have an equal argument back and forth, that means that you're truly in the middle, and it's neither and both. I think it's weird because here's the question that I always ask. I think both arguments and factual things on both sides are correct. And that means that this is something new. Because here's one thing I always ask myself that usually discerns it is I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I have great reviews and all my stuff. And I don't make very many mistakes. But unfortunately, I am human, and I've made a couple here and there. It's late at night. Sometimes when we dash here, because it's so on and off, you have to ride the wave when it's there. And there are times I'll go 8 hours straight without stopping. I mean, literally not stopping at all, not even to use the restroom. And after you do that, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, you're seeing double. And it's dark and you can't see anything. There's been times whenever I've sat the wrong bag out on a porch, and I've crisscrossed them. Which barcodes, DoorDash, come on, Walmart and Flex has barcodes. Come on now, please. But you set them out there on the porch, and you drive away to get a phone call, and it's you can't blame it on anybody else, and it's SOB.
No, that's on you. We've all done something like that.
Right? And then let's do the employee thing again. What's the difference between your base pay and my hourly wage?
Yeah, well, here, I'm sorry, but let me finish
No,
it.
this was,
The point of that the story was the setup to the point. So the
no,
point
this was for Pedro. That was for Pedro.
I'm sorry. So you drove. I drove off with two giant Denny's orders that are $40 a piece. That's $80. Now that either DoorDash and or Denny's has to resupply. It didn't come out of my pocket. If I was an independent contractor and I took that, that's coming out of Jason's pocket because I screwed up, or I got to go back and get it. Which then you can't trust that because someone took it in their house, and you can't give somebody pancakes that went into someone. You can't. So that was it.
So
but that would be my thing. What's the difference between your base pay and my hourly wage?
Big difference. Big difference. Okay. My base pay, depending on the app, fluctuates a lot more than your hourly wage. Your hourly wage stays stagnant for half a year. If you get a raise or not, yours will go up and not go down. Mine fluctuates. I think there's a big difference there. Because it could be $1 on Uber Eats, $2 here, $10 there, $20 for this. So mine fluctuates.
But if you're an independent contractor, should you have any base pay limitations?
What do you mean?
Well, if you're independent, shouldn't you be able to dictate your base pay? Should you be able to go in your app and say, okay, my base pay for any order I take has to be $5?
Technically, I think without knowing all the way, I think we're supposed to. But my rebuttal to that is the way that we dictate our pay is accept and decline, right? So if it doesn't make sense for me, I'm going to decline it. Or if I accepted it and I get something better on another one, I'm going to cancel this one. So the way I dictate my base pay or my overall pay is my decision making. But I can't dictate it. I can't tell the app what I want. I can only say yes or no, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because they're never going to do that. Because how many times have we always said, like, I'm not taking anything under $6. You're sitting there, it's slow. You know that
$5, yeah.
Yeah, if it's $5, it's going right there. And then, because here, if you would have did that, you would, and they know that they don't. To quote Bill Burr, I don't know what they're up to, but they don't want to make less money. I know that, So they're not going to do anything that's going to hinder more or less faces or whatever the English on that the verbiage would be. Less faces seeing the orders,
But we'll talk about it this way too. Also, have you noticed your base pay not fluctuating as much as more people get on the app and more people are willing to take certain orders? Have you noticed the base pay not? Because remember back in the days, when I would do it, you would get huge fluctuations in your base pay. Some would be $7, some would be fucking $8. But as I've noticed a lot now, your base pay is usually standard $2.50, $2.50. Have you guys noticed that in your markets? Where your base pay is
Jason, you go first.
Well, what is the overall pay? Is it the immediate question he just asked, or is there an overall question? Because we kind of got off on it there. What are we?
No, I was just saying on your base pay, when you say your base pay fluctuates or whatever, have you noticed a decrease in the amount of where your base pay fluctuates?
Oh, absolutely. It's gone down. And I just wrote in the chat about an hour on Instacart, there was an order and I delivered to him regularly. He always tips the same. It's the same fee. Plus, of course, it's documented afterward in Instacart. The standard base pay was there, which they decreased. They used to apply it to both. Now it's to one. I know what that guy tips. It marked what he's tipped. I delivered a second order 100% to somebody for free. And it wasn't even beside somebody where you'd be all right, whatever. I had to drive clear across town to a no tipper to drop off an entire grocery order that wouldn't and shouldn't and couldn't have gotten it delivered.
Yeah, Instacart's really good at that, aren't they?
So that guy, that generous guy, and people would be I bet you the public would be very outraged to know that when they tip and they're a generous tipper, you're tipping for somebody else who doesn't tip, because that's what's happening. And that's exactly what happened there. And I didn't find out until later. So I'm that's funny. That's always what we'll call him Jim. That's always what Jim tips. But there's a second order. Geez, maybe did he tip lower after it was over? Nope. Dude tipped 0, and I drove all the way across town to drop off a grocery order.
Yeah.
The store made out, Instacart made out, and the customer made out. Who got screwed? Us.
You did. Yeah.
Yeah. In this case, Jason. Yeah, got screwed. So poor me, literally poor me, who's a working person, driving my own car. I just supplied all of these billionaires dropping their stuff off and Mr. No Tip. I gave him his groceries. But anyway, to answer his question, yeah. And that's an example of one of the things where it does.
Yeah. Roy, I think with me, DoorDash seems to be more standard, at least when I was doing it. I went back and did 5 deliveries, but I'm not going to be doing that app anymore. But with Uber, I've noticed like anywhere from $1 to I've had Uber Eats base pay on Walmart's that are like $30 base pay. Like it's so on Uber Eats, at least it's so the
Uber.
range is so big that I don't know if I've seen a difference based on like the saturation of new drivers coming in, or like I don't know. The range is so big on Uber Eats, man,
Yeah.
that it's
See, I've never
hard.
done
It's
Uber
hard for
Eats.
me to tell.
I wasn't
Well,
allowed.
that's the thing. That's the wild card I was talking about earlier. Every app is different. That's one of many Uber's wild cards. Is their base pay is insane, and it's even funnier when you look at Rideshare because it's the exact opposite. It's like two halves
Yeah.
of the same animal. Like so, their ride, you'll be sitting there 1 block away from somebody who's not tipping. It wants you to give them a ride for $3. I've literally been asked 20 times to pick somebody up, and I wouldn't because it's $3. Yet though, when it's food, it flips around and like you don't want to pick them up, you keep declining, the pay goes up and up and up. Who's paying for that? Where's that money coming from? I guess that's when they overcharge the rideshare guys, which they're taking like around 51% now. So like if like something's $30, like their Uber keeps like 15.50 and you get like 14.50 now. Like, is that where that money's coming from? Because it's
Well, I
coming
think
from something.
on Uber Eats, what we got to remember is depending on the merchant that the customer ordered it from, there's some crazy service and delivery fees on some of these merchants. I've seen them in St. Louis where it's like Denny's will be like $9.99 delivery fee.
Oh,
It's crazy. So I
didn't
think
know.
sometimes with the food, the reason the base pay can go up so much is
Yeah.
because it is a temperature controlled item. They want it accepted quickly, but then also the delivery fee is different than the rideshare because the rideshare customers aren't getting taxed quite as much as the food sometimes. But that's how I look at that.
Well,
But
the answer is that. So thank you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've always wanted that.
But
Yeah.
that was a good debate. You guys very professional.
I thought so. I thought
Roy wanted a little more fire and brimstone.
I said I was like, you need a protagonist up there. Something kind of
No,
when you see the news channel, that's all you see is people screaming, and I turn it off.
No.
I'm
not really a screamer. I get passionate. I don't scream really. Maybe I've done it once or twice, but like on some personal shit. But like, no, I thought it was a good conversation. I think if anything, Roy, Jason, we need more of that. I've seen Roy a part of debates that were really good. And I think it's I always like to be in rooms where like I think differently than somebody because I could either learn something or maybe they might learn something. And I think those conversations are always better for me. I think if we all just agree, we're not growing, we're not learning, we're not thinking about things differently. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure I gave Tim a couple things to think about, my perspective. He gave me a couple things, and that's a good thing. People grow from that. Drivers can grow from that. If I just sit here and just like, agree with everything Roy says all the time, that's nobody's winning there. We're just basically pandering one another. You know what I mean? So
But he does know ICE is starting to crack down on drivers too, though. So they did that
sure
thing in Chicago, so where they went
Yeah.
into the airport. And I think they arrested 22 people that were not supposed to be there. So
it's a big thing. We had a story out in St. Louis. I did a video on it. Like, guy got arrested. He's a delivery driver and like a restaurant worker. So like it's happening, and I think if anything, it's going to continue. And I think some of us in this community might see some benefit of that because let's say tomorrow they go to the Walmart Spark on Manchester and they arrest 20 people. Those orders, that's 20 less people that are going to be able to accept. So that means everybody else is going to make more money. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But
Well, it's funny, and I guess I don't know if it's related or not. I don't think that it is, but it might seem like it on the surface. So, like my area here, there's a large, people that look like me, here, and so I don't know who's doing it, but like there's a lot of Mexican restaurants popping up here, and I think it's like the same guy doing it, and like he actually educates all these folks for like in English. They all speak like perfect English. Like no one has a problem with it here. Like everyone's cool. Everyone loves going to the restaurants. Everyone's cool. And I think there's some other people coming in because they see what's going on. And this was kind of funny. This is just a bit of a side story, and it's interesting. And is the diversity of this business is I speak a tiny bit of Spanish, tiny. And I was given a ride share to one of the other restaurants that isn't in this conglomerate. And I'm in there yakking like I do when they get in the car, and we're just talking about stuff, and all these people are just smiling and nodding, and I started thinking, I'm like, I don't want to think that they didn't speak English. Like that's, weird. So I just keep talking. He's like, no, no English. And I'm like, oh, no, siento. I said, I was interested. So I started asking, I'm like, do other people like speak Spanish at all? And they're like, no. And I was like, well, this is interesting. So like, it kind of helps out. Like they're there. They don't care what's going on. Apparently my area doesn't care what's going on. Like we're here we're all doing it. We're not paying it. We're like in our own little bubble. We're not paying attention to the outside world. We're all harmonizing, doing business. Everyone's happy with everybody's service. And, it's all working out,
Yeah. Roy, what's happening in Vegas with I mean, do you guys see any issues out there with illegal accounts or ICE doing this, or like, do you have any of that or not?
I don't even try. I really don't pay attention to it. I haven't seen anything on our news about them going out and fucking picking people up. I'm sure they do it, but I don't really watch our local news that much to see. I actually deliver to one of the ICE places.
Oh, me too. Me too.
Do they tip? Do they leave a tip?
Yeah. Oh, they tip very well. Yeah, they're the security people there. They tip very well, actually.
Did they make you go in through the gate?
I'm not allowed to go inside anywhere.
See, we have two here. One of them's right by my house. It's a little one. And there's a huge one I had to take a flex to, which I'm not going to get too off in the story. It sent me in the wrong way, and I couldn't get in and whatever. And I have other stores I could tell what goes in there. But basically, they make you go in. And when they do, they practically give you a colorectal examination to get in there. Like, and it's insane. It's like, as the kids would say, just put the fries in the bag, bro. I'm here to drop off. I can't spend 3 hours going through like all this crap just to sit the box down. So in other words, in the end, I'm kind of glad I wasn't physically able to make the delivery, because if I had, God knows what I would have. And I don't want to go back there. Like, I'm like, if I see anything, like I'm not taking it, because I'm like, I just want to make my delivery. I don't want to go in here and spend 10 years going through security and having the dogs under my truck and them searching my vehicle. And I'm like, I'm just here to drop up.
No, forget all that.
No, they allow me to park alongside where they park their police cars. So I park alongside, and then they come out to me. I already told them I carry weapons on me, so I don't want to go nowhere near your building because I don't need that hassle. So
it's cool though.
I carry stuff on me, so they always come out to me right away, and I just park where the police cars are parked, and they come and get it, and I go off.
Oh, good for you. It works out then. Yeah, I know it ain't like that here.
Yeah, they don't.
Well, hey, gentlemen, listen, I appreciate you guys' time tonight. Coming up on the 2-hour mark. Yeah, Jason, Roy, always a pleasure to have you coming on. I thought it was a good convo. Hope to have more people on that have different varying opinions, but I appreciate you guys for coming on tonight, and have a good rest of your Sunday, okay?
Yep, you do, man.
Take it easy. Thank you.
All right.
Turn this off.
All right, is it me, Martha? Okay, there we go. Yeah, so good night. I like to mix it up on these lives sometimes, and have varying opinions, and we're not going to change the world, we're not going to solve the problems, but we could. A dialogue is the beginning sometimes of more understanding, or sometimes it's a beginning of change within these, not the companies necessarily, but maybe our mindsets and how we look at them and how we attack them and how we earn. I'll continue to make my videos, continue to share my experiences. And if people think this way about it, or they don't agree, that's everybody's right. That's everybody's opinion. And it's great. Keep watching. I'm for it. It's all good with me. Upcoming this week, obviously, we got to remember the time that we're coming in. I'll end with this. We're coming into next week is Thanksgiving. Our Instacart apps, Walmart Spark, the grocery apps, DoorDash, Uber Eats. You're going to see an influx volume when you get to Tuesday, Wednesday next week of people ordering certain things. Doesn't mean it's all going to be good. And in your marketplace, you want to know what days and times, what stores you want to stay out of if the line's really long, or maybe they're out of certain things. There's going to be a little bit of strategy involved in decision making over the next, we'll call it, 10 days or so. The apps that you're going to be working, they tend to shift a little bit as we get to these holidays, colder weather. Usually you should have more money opportunities when those things happen. So be on the lookout for that. I got a couple of catering orders. I got a 8:25 tomorrow. And then I got a pickup for 4 o'clock. So I should have 3. I would hope to get a lunch one, but I got a breakfast catering, and then like a late afternoon. With the late afternoon one is a pick up at 4:30, so I'll do that and be done with my day. So I've already got like $120 in the books. I've already made $120 tomorrow. Is how I look at it. So easily on my way to $300 Monday. That should be no problem at all, especially with the timing of these. When you make 120, it's got to find $180 basically between 9 and 4:30. That's very easy. So tomorrow's $300. So when I talk about trying to get on other apps and trying to do that, there's benefits to it, right? Appreciate all the love and support tonight. Hope you guys had, hope you guys were entertained and enlightened in some way. And I'll see you next Sunday. That's the plan, is to have another live show next Sunday. Maybe even a scheduled guest. I have somebody in mind that I'm going to reach out to that I think you guys will really enjoy. So be on the lookout for that. And I'll see you guys next week.